It is my absolute pleasure to welcome you all for this very interesting webinar on the strategic role of mining in enabling Atmanirbhar Bharat. We intend to cover a range of topics of interest, but broadly in four broad categories. One is mining industry's role in creating a 5 trillion economy for India and the targeted share of mining in Indian GDP. That's one topic. Secondly, we'll talk about the current regulatory framework and the associated policies supporting this sector. Thirdly, we'll talk about enhancing the role of private sector participation across the mining value chain, especially in exploration, for example, where the participation of private sector traditionally has not been that great. And lastly, we'll also talk about the future ambitions of the government as far as this sector is concerned, and try to seek some guidance from the government in terms of the policy framework going forward so that the private sector players and all the players for that matter can plan their way ahead. We plan this to be an hour and 15-minute session. I'm hoping that we still stick to that timeline. So hopefully we plan to wind up by around 5:30 or so. We are very fortunate to have Shri Pralhad Joshi, Union Minister for Coal, Parliamentary Affairs and Mines, Government of India, who will be delivering the keynote address followed by a Q&A. We'll also have a panel discussion with Dr. Aruna Sharma, former Steel Secretary, Government of India, and Mr. Sandeep Lakhwara, MD Deccan Gold Mines. But before I invite Honorable Minister, may I invite Mr. Sunil Duggal, Global CEO Vedanta Limited, to share his brief thoughts. Mr. Duggal, over to you. You're on mute, sir. Let me.
Am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible now. Yes. Yes.
Namaskar, everyone. Thank you, sir, for sparing your time. So today evening we are very to have Pralhad Joshi sir with us, Honorable Minister of Mines, Coal and Parliamentary Affairs, Rajesh ji, and ladies and gentlemen. It's my privilege to welcome you all here in this webinar. I'm told that this is the fourth webinar in a series of 10 webinars is doing on the different topics, and they are also bringing government, industry, experts, advisors on a single platform where we are deliberating. We can go forward, create a platform in a where the Atmanirbhar or mission of minister can be taken ahead. So glad to be here. If I actually look at the first term of this government, when the government came, the first thing they did is to bring the transparency. After bringing the transparency, they thought of pushing many mining reforms and other reforms in all the sectors. So we all see that this government, no matter what happens or the resistance we have to face, but they have been pushing the reforms in all the sectors. The auction regime was introduced by this government to bring the transparency, and as Rajesh, you were saying that the exploration was one of the key areas to focus. So NMET was brought where the private sector participation and the contribution was seek. On the way, we might have faced many hurdles, but as we travel, we have been able to overcome many hurdles, and I am also told that big reforms are also in offing going forward. Minister has been very, very brave, and he understands the need of the mining industry and the contribution of the natural resource sector. Many reforms have been brought in oil and gas sector. Many reforms have been brought in coal, because of which you might have recently seen that the auction of the coal blocks have taken place and the commercial coal mining has been allowed. Also look back, how the digital economy has been pushed, how the circular economy has been focused, but also focusing on the fundamentals like skilling of our youth was identified one of the key areas. So on the complete value chain, a lot has been done by this government, which is a praiseworthy steps, I would say. I don't want to take much of the time because we are here to listen the views and the advice of Minister. So I'm not taking much of the time. So thanks once again for all of you having assembled over here. And I hand over the mic to Honorable Minister for his views. Thank you very much. Over to you, sir.
अरुणा शर्मा और संदीप पोखरेवारे की डेक्कन गोल्ड actually joined to the country and especially to me. It is a historic day for me because today we, Honorable Prime Minister, has laid the foundation stone for the new Parliament building. Parliament building, as you know, it is almost nearly 100 years old, and many renovations also have been taken place time to time. But to cater the needs of today's requirement, need a new Parliament building. This Parliament building, which is now we are using for Parliament session and other things, that is, as I already told, 100 years old, that is becoming insufficient even as far as upgradation of technology and the space constraint. There is a very serious space constraint. Why Honorable Prime Minister today laid the foundation stone. By 2022, have a new Parliament building, and with all technological facilities, so that Parliament can also be made paperless. And this is what today for Parliamentary Affairs is also a responsibility, Parliamentary Affairs Minister also. So that's why I feel this is a historic day, both for country and personally to me more so. Today, this virtual seminar is about the vision for strategic mining for Atmanirbhar Bharat. I have told many times, I have referred it, that whatever the mining we do in India, whatever the natural resources are there, that mining is properly done, that adds a big thing to our economy. The other things, whatever we do manufacture, especially petroleum related, whether it is plastic or any other such thing related to petroleum is the base product, and such things, only whatever we add the value, that will be whatever the tax we get, that will be our revenue. But as far as our natural resources is concerned, that is the whatever we dig out and bring out, that is 100% it adds to our economy. This is the difference between the simply adding the cost, importing the raw material, adding the cost. That is why thrust of Narendra Modi ji is make in India, manufacture in India, manufacture in India, make in India for the world. That is the concept and the perception which is building up under the leadership of Shri Narendra Modi. On 12th May, Prime Minister announced call to the nation to become self-reliant, giving kickstart to the Atmanirbhar Bharat. gave a way to building New India that is self-reliant and vocal for local. India that can manufacture globally competitive products and optimally utilize its vast natural resources. The weeks that followed, nation witnessed many policy changes aimed at giving new direction to the economy that was dealing with the slowdown caused by COVID-19. The mining sector also prepared for the same. India's mining sector have many misfortunes in the past. Our obvious geological survey is just 10% compared to world. It is various other world countries in the world. It is 80%, 90%, even some are more than 95%. For decades, country was burdened under the massive corruption and the malpractices in mining sector. There used to be opaque allocation for the coal blocks. We all are well aware that scams resulting from the fraudulent allocation of the blocks and the exploitation of the nation's natural resources that took place under the previous regime. The mining industry, along with the country's economy, was suffering tremendously because of this policy paralysis. When it comes the mining license, the previous regime, there used to be a screening committees for the selection of the companies, which involved in discretion of the committee members and resulted in the corrupt practices, which you all know very well. I don't want to explain it in detail because country has witnessed it and country has debated it. The government, led by Shri Modi, we brought a transparent system. All natural resources concerned, transparent system of allocation. We brought CMSP Act 2015, bringing transparent of the auction blocks which were cancelled by the Supreme Court, and change in the regime from fixed free fee per ton model to revenue sharing. And model is like a blow to fresh air in the industry, especially during the COVID-19 situation. At the time when the mining sector as a whole had lost hope for the change and surrendered to the regime of marked by policy paralysis and rapid corruption, NDA government in 2014 under the leadership of Shri Modi ji decided to transform the sector using the transparency and accountability as the foundation of the governance. Last 6 years, Modi government has spearheaded the sector enough to take this opportunity and bring paradigm shift from the import-based sector to the self-sufficient driver of the economic activity. As you know, though we are the largest users of the coal in the world, we are the largest importers also of the coal. Several policies and initiatives have been undertaken that are aligned with our vision to unleash the mining potential of the country. We are on our way to transform the sector suitable and better yielding. Our focus on strategic mining is helping to create healthy business sound ecosystem. We have taken up all-out approach to make mining industry not only to self-sufficient but also to center on the other industrial activity. As we already know that while calling out for Atmanirbhar Bharat, Prime Minister Shri Modi ji had emphasized on the foundation of self-sufficient country rests on the 5 pillars can club the policy reforms undertaken in the mining sector under those 5 pillars. Economy, we need an economy that does not just bring the incremental change but in fact makes significant jump. We launched commercial coal mining to produce the maximum coal at the earliest. Rules were adjusted such that there were no restriction on sale or utilization of the coal to make attractive for the bidders. As you know, end users restriction was there, that was also withdrawn. And as far as I know, last 1.5 years in this ministry, my experience is nowhere in the world there is restriction of end user or captive or non-captive, such things are not there. That also we are trying to, this difference between captive and non-captive also, we are changing this very shortly, and we are trying to open the sector and we are trying to make it investor friendly. Early production was incentivized with 50% rebate and to mine owner in the revenue share paid to the state. As a major reformative step, we adopted revenue sharing mechanism instead of regime of fixed per rupee per ton. Bidding of commercial mining was successful with 19 coal mines at cumulative peak rated capacity of 51 million ton per annum, and they were successfully auctioned. Mines on auction across the 5 states in the country received the great offers over the floor price. Premium of more than 66% was received for the mine in Chhattisgarh. Moreover, almost 65% bidders were from the non-end users category, providing that industry was eagerly waiting for such a move. Actually, some of the states raised some doubts, and even now I appeal to the state, if you wholeheartedly support both this coal sector reforms and mining sector reforms, I am quite hopeful there will be competition and there will be healthy competition so that our natural resources can be mined and brought out in a most competitive manner, which will be win-win situation. It will also get the revenue, and the import of the many things can be stopped. Also, we can produce our own value-added activity can be done. That will add to the economy of the state itself. Commercial mining will fetch around 6,656 crores in annual revenue while generating almost 70,000 jobs. Government policy shift has led to the creation of free market for coal. With the private sector participation, the sector is now open to competition and the greater efficiencies resulting in enhanced and ensured domestic supply of coal at reduced prices. Boosting the ease of doing business in the sector, 100% FDI under the automatic route for the sale of coal mining activity has been allowed by the government. Also, provision for prospecting license cum mining license has been extended for the coal lignite sector. This will help in increasing the available inventory of coal and lignite box. Government simplified the mining guidelines to make it friendly with the online system. Accordingly, mineral concession rules have been amended. Not only this, we have strengthened the coal controller and delegated him approval powers, boosting the seamless interministerial data accessibility. Mining plan can be approved online and will be linked to the Parvesh portal of MOEFC, Ministry of Environment and Forest Clearance. To boost the investment, the government has provided auction of mineral blocks with pre-embedded clearances for mining projects. We have requested the states of Gujarat, Odisha, Karnataka, Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan to identify at least 5 mineral blocks with for auction with pre-embedded clearances. I have requested 5, but if any state comes forward and offers for the pre-embedded clearances, Government of India is open for that. This will ensure that mining activities in New India continue without the hindrances of our vision of the self-sufficient nation. Second pillar, the infrastructure. We need the infrastructure that will become identity of the modern India. To upgrade the coal transport facility, 39 first mile connectivity projects at an expenditure of 18,000 crores are in various stages of implementation. Coal PSUs have an investment plan of almost 2.5 lakh crores by 2030 to business area, clean coal technologies and new development projects. Out of this 2.5 lakh crore, at least by 23-24, from 1.25 lakh crore will be invested, and that will be a major boost to the economy. New business areas will see investment of 1.2 lakh crore, diversification project, and include setting up of the solar and thermal power projects, setting up of the solar wafer production unit, entering in alumina refinery and smelter business. As we know, solar wafer production, many of the things from where we import today and which is not really good in present atmosphere, that's why we are thinking of the under the diversification solar wafer production unit is also, we are considering it and we are already working on that. To achieve the vision of 100 million tons of coal gasification, a combined investment from both PSUs and private sector, tune of 4 lakh crores will be done by 2030. Third pillar is the system. We need technology-driven system that is no longer based on the rules and the rituals of the past, but one that actualizes the dreams of 21st century. Government has approved star rating policy for all mines in the country to identify the best performers in terms of safety, security, environment, mining practices, adoption of technologies, rehabilitation of the affected families, welfare of workers, etc. Boost the transparency in the coal allocation. Methodologies and the procedures were streamlined through several amendments to MMDR Act, enactment of the CMSP Act and CBA rules. To bring the accountability in the working of the coal sector, the various web portals and the mobile apps were developed for the stakeholders, increasing the efficiency of the sector. Ongoing research work, the coal sector has now been brought on single platform to disseminate the information, submit the proposal and promote the research work of the sector. Similarly, the coal mine surveillance, the management system, Khan Prahari app were launched to monitor the unauthorized coal mining activity. Here also I appeal to the state government, if unauthorized coal mining has to be stopped, that will, one is that illegal activity can be stopped, and if it is legally done, coordination with this central government policy, there will be income to there will be revenue to the state also. With the coal project monitoring portal, we are ensuring timely and expeditious resolution issues pending at the state and central ministries. Fourth pillar, vibrant demography. We are the world's biggest democracy. A vibrant democracy is our strength, is the source of energy for our effort to make India self-reliant. We have been working together with the state in the spirit of cooperative federalism. A strategy mining sector is one where the actions of the state complement the policies of the center. Our decisions have helped in tapping the essence of democracy. As mentioned earlier, commercial mining of coal will help the state to garner rupees 6,656 crores in annual revenue. This amount will be utilized by the state to promote the development and the growth activities. Additionally, with the amendment of MMDR Act, total 105 mineral blocks have been auctioned so far across the 9 states. The estimated revenue to the state government over the lease period of these auction mines would be around 8 lakh crore. Moreover, 570 districts in 21 mineral districts across the country are using the District Mineral Foundation for the welfare and the development of mining affected areas and the people. More than 41,000 crores have been collected under the DMF, and this amount is also being used to battle the COVID in those regions. Fifth one is demand. The cycle of demand and supply in our economy is an asset. We need to utilize this power fully. India has the 4th largest coal reserves in the world, yet it is the world's 2nd largest coal importer. This I have already mentioned. Emphasis on the self-sufficient India undertook several initiatives to reduce the coal import, thus boosting the demand and supply of the domestic coal. Self-reliance, the substitution of import by independent thermal power plants and the captive power plant, is resulting in saving the foreign reserve. To meet demand for the coal, commercial mining will also play a major role by contributing substantial portion of the nation's coal production. Pull the industry out of COVID-induced fall, the mining sector extended the price reduction supporting the other allied industry during this period. Base price for the auctions was reduced by coal PSUs and credit facility extended by permitting use on sales. Coal linkage quantity was increased and performance incentives were foregone to help the consumers to maintain robust coal stock so that nation does not suffer from lack of power for industries and our population. When Shri Modi ji promised the nation to unlock the coal sector from decades of lockdown, the sector was ready to undergo the major overhaul and transform into the future ready sector. Several key policy changes place. Sector is now brimming with the hopes. It is ready to sustain New India and power it towards the self-reliance. These words, there are many reforms which are in pipeline, very short, which I think Mr. Duggal also was mentioning. Very shortly, most investment and industrial friendly mining reforms are going to come out, and under the guidance of guidance and the leadership of Shri Narendra Modi, I am quite confident and I am assuring you there will be greater reforms, and those reforms will bring a major change in the sector, and there will be both growth of economy and there will be creation of jobs also. These words, thank you for inviting, and I thank Swaraj magazine team for providing an opportunity to share my views. Dhanyawad.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much for this, and congratulations on inaugurating the new Parliament building. And it's very heartening to know that it's tech-enabled. I'm sure it will sort of win a new era in the Indian parliamentary democracy. A few quick questions, sir, if I can get your attention. So, I mean, as we've been discussing, the contribution of mining sector, excluding petroleum and natural gas, to the Indian GDP is well under 2%. Of course, it's not apple-to-apple comparison, but say some of the other mineral-rich countries like say South Africa or Australia, they have GDP contribution of mining to almost 7.5%. So, any thoughts on how to improve the percentage share of mining in the Indian GDP overall? Any thoughts on that?
Lot of changes we are already started bringing in, lot of reforms. Out of that, one is this: we have no participation of private players in the exploration. That's why we have started PL. We have already started, and we are trying to bring some more changes, so that PL come ML regime, that prospective license come mining license regime, PL come ML regime, we are going to, with all liberal reforms, investor-friendly reforms, we are going to bring it. And as far as this limestone and surficial minerals are concerned, we have almost decided to auction it at the G3 level. Now it is at the G2 level. And also at the G4 level, we are, whatever the reforms we are trying to bring, we want to go for other minerals also, PL come ML regime in G4. And there will be a very easy exit route also. These are all the few reforms we are going to bring, and also 100% FDI to automatic route, and such other things are there. And auction also, even when we brought the auction, after having the experience of the recent Odisha auctions, we are trying to consult the state government and the stakeholders also, not only just revenue, also to the production link, performance link, and how to work out. We are trying to consult with the state government, because ultimately, at least coal to salmon, it is almost 80-90% it is in the hands of the central government. But as far as the other mining sector is concerned, we are the policy makers, and actual implementers. Implementation is rests with the state government. So we are, and revenue is also either in coal or except from the Coal India Limited, all other coal or any other mines, the revenue also goes for the state. We are only facilitators. So keeping that, we are consulting with them also, because going up to 160%, we are also not, we are only, the intention of the government is not only for the revenue, earning of the revenue. At the same time, we should utilize our natural resources. This is the approach of the government. This is the approach of Honorable Prime Minister. That's why in another, very shortly, I can say a month or so, we will come with a most, industrial friendly, investor friendly, environment friendly policy, so that there will be more investment and there will be more contribution to GDP. We are also aware, I myself mentioned, obvious geological survey, in the entire world it is 80-90%, whereas India it is just 10%. So that also, to increase that, many policy reforms are needed. And you may ask me, in between, because of COVID, some of the things are delayed, but otherwise also in India we need to talk to the state. I have to consider their, I have to take their comments also, and also what is the important for the sector also, people who are working in the sector also, I have to take them also into conference. Then only we can achieve something. So in taking this, feedback and other things, we have already done that. It was kept for the public comment also. Now it is in the finalization stage. After the pronouncement of that policy, I am quite confident that there will be a very, very positive change in the sector.
Absolutely, sir. I think I'm just picking on one of the points you made about the auction regime. So one of the things there, sir, is that if you see, as you rightly pointed out, in the recently concluded auctions also, especially for iron ore, the premiums were, really aggressive, 150, 160% and thereabout. So, and as you rightly said, the state's objective or the country's objective is not revenue maximization. It's more about enhancing the productivity and the production in the sector. So any guidance on going forward? Would you be continuing with the similar auctioning process, or would you sort of bring in some elements of productivity enhancement or production enhancement also in the kind of auction regime? You definitely have captured, like for example, even the currently concluded commercial coal block auctions, you have captured some incentives for early sort of opening of the mines. That's an excellent move. But anything linked to production, you think should also be captured going forward, because that's the larger objective of the country?
We are very positively considering this, but at the same time, we have to think of the state inputs, and also mining plan. Because once mining plan is approved, on that mining plan only there will be production is linked. But in spite of having said that, production linked, performance linked, and also early production also. Suppose if I give a green field to you, and if it takes, we give 60 months because so many clearances, around 20 clearances are there. Somehow, if you manage to get early clearances and start the production early, there will be an incentive. There should be an incentive. This is what we are thinking, and we have taken the stakeholders' comment also and the feedback of the state government also. I think, and I have requested all the mining ministers of the country with the state government mining ministries, they add the volume, add more mines and get the revenue. Just auctioning few mines and taking more revenue and they are not producing is not good. This is what is the approach of, under the guidance of Shri Narendra Modi, we are taking this approach. Add more mines to the sector so that you will get more. So that there will be competition also. They will, if you add 100 mines today, tomorrow, for example, whatever the iron ore auctioned recently, if you add some more 100 in various parts of the country, then nobody will go 100%. So this is what we are thinking, and hopefully we will do it. I am quite confident.
Thank you very much, sir. Next quick question, you mentioned the exploration, and you're absolutely right. Currently, I was just checking some numbers. Of the global spends on exploration, India, I understand, is spending around 0.3% of the global spend on exploration. And in a smaller country like Canada is spending 19%. And that's a point you rightly picked up in your address as well. So what's the thinking of the government, sir? Will it be the PL plus ML route going forward for exploration? Or do you see that it should be a combination of private sector plus the government sector? I mean, how do you see the exploration part playing out?
No, that's what I told, PL can, ML region at G4 level, we want to give at PL come ML, PL come ML. At that time, if I give some vast area for the PL come ML, you can go for the exploration. And we are trying to keep an exit route. After all your exploration, if you feel that previously what was the issue, once if you take, you cannot go out. आपको तभी पूरा फाइन सब कुछ आपको मैंने अभी बोलने का ठीक नहीं है, एक बार एंट्री किया तो इट वाज वन वे एंट्री. नाउ वी आर opening the other doors also, other way also, so that after all, if you go for the exploration, whatever you explore, you should submit the data and you can exit. This simple policy we are trying to keep it. This we are hoping after all consultation is over. All consultation is almost over, and within the ministry consultation is going on. Very shortly we are going to bring these policies. These policies naturally will bring the exploration, and then private people also in the exploration. This is what we are thinking. And also NMET, we want to change the policy as far as NMET is also concerned. And NMET now only GSI is doing it. Now through NMET also, if somebody wants to go for the exploration through NMET also, we are thinking of providing support through NMET also for the private player also. Now there is no provision almost like that.
Got it. And I know one of the pain points of the industry was about the past licenses where they got exploration licenses. So any guidance on that, sir? The 10A2B or any of that, or you feel this PL plus ML is going forward regime that you're looking at?
No, that is in the that both the arguments are there. Government is considering both the arguments, and we will take a decision very shortly.
Got it, sir. Just last question before we wind up. You did mention that for the other mines, other minerals as well, like limestone, etc., you are evaluating PLI, PL plus ML, 100% FDI kind of options. Any quick thoughts on the rare earths, sir? Because that again is going to be one of the crucial, minerals going forward, especially if you're looking at electrical vehicles or the new age economy like battery storage, etc. So, any thoughts on rare earths? Any policies or guidance on rare earths?
For rare earth and deep seated, actually my personal view is, I am telling my personal view now, there should be a different policy. But as of now, let this reform come out. After that, even in that, there is some, we are trying to put some special provision for that. And apart from that, once this, if this comes out successfully, then we will definitely take, your views also, means industry views also, and we will come out with a proper policy on that also.
Thank you very much, sir, for spending time and answering all the questions. Thank you very much for your time. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, sir. So moving on, let me invite Dr. Aruna Sharma, former Steel Secretary, Government of India, and Mr. Sandeep Lakhwara for a quick panel discussion. Dr. Aruna and Mr. Sandeep, you're there? Yes, yes, great to see you. So quick questions, ma'am. You heard the minister speak. A lot of interesting insights. Just continuing with the point that I was making with the minister as well. Any thoughts you have? Maybe start with Aruna, ma'am. Any thoughts on the auction regime? Do you feel current auctions where the government takes a revenue share, either through the revenue share model or through premium? Do you feel any modifications need to be made? Any thoughts from an industry perspective to sort of enhance the productivity, which of course is the ask at the country level? Any thoughts, ma'am? Maybe let me start with Ms. Aruna first, and then I'll go to Sandeep as well.
Okay. I'm really thankful to the minister for setting such a positive tone for a sector which is going to result to two major of the country. One is to add on to the GDP growth, and second is to provide the employment at a very good rate. So with an arrangement that we are having, is going to make a lot of difference when we are going to proceed ahead with it. Come back to your question. Today, you have literally 6 kinds of royalties that are being paid. So if you look at it, the whole process of auction, then getting the clearances, once from the latest amendment to accelerate the auction has been really good, where it was encouraged to them for going ahead. And after going ahead, they were asked to literally go and work upon, the environment clearances were given to them for at least 2 years of time. So that has made a lot of difference when we move ahead on this. So what is very interesting in this entire episode is that you pay royalty, you pay district mineral fund, you pay tax on tax. So you pay cess for the coal, you pay environment tax, you pay forest tax. So there is a strong case whether we go for ad valorem or whether we come back with a bulk percentage of the royalty, and then at the back end by software it is shared between the district, state and the center. And so that you don't have to have so many calculations and so many taxes being paid with a fear of going for a problem. And definitely that makes a difference to the productivity, because the focus has to be to bring in technology to exploit the minerals scientifically as much as possible with the least impact on the environment, and do the environmental correction measures, instead of sitting and doing the accounting for calculations and doing and running, getting clearances and everything. So rationalizing all this is going to make a difference.
Sure. Sandeep, your thoughts on the auction process? Yeah. I'll come to explanation later. So this is only about auctions. Yeah. Yes, Sandeep.
Yeah, I actually, Rajesh, should focus on some of the other things that the minister talked about, which I thought were extremely positive. The first thing that I liked about the several points that he raised was he was talking about an exit for exploration companies. I think that is a much, much needed reform that has to be introduced in India. It is available across the world, and India would be one of the very few countries where it was not available. And, the explorers want that security to happen. So that was excellent. The other thing that he talked about was making NMET funds available to the private sector instead of just the GSI. I think that is also a step in the right direction. Coupled with that, if they add on, and there is, there are a few papers on it. I know that FEMI, CII have spoken about it in the past, is availability of capital through stock exchanges. as you would probably be aware, if you look at the stock exchanges in Australia, Canada, UK, USA, they have special provisions made available for exploration companies to go out and raise risk capital to invest back into the exploration sector. And what that does, it gives the exploration to raise required, it gives investors stages of exploration, those that may wish at advanced stage, they pay a bit more, and so on and so forth. The third point, which I thought was extremely positive as well, that the minister has been talking about, and this is something that I strongly have been, talking about myself, is that there need to be two parallel policies. The auction regime is very suitable in certain cases, but in the cases of rare earths and precious metals, minerals, you do require a different policy. And the reasons for that is very simple. Exploration per se, particularly for precious metals, we all know, is a very long, tedious, high risk with a very low success rate. Just looking at figures, the success rate of discovery is something like 1 in 400 prospects that you may explore, and that increases for minerals such as diamond, where the discovery rate could be 1 in 1,000. And it could take 10 years. It does require high quantums of capital investment, etc. And that's best suited to the private sector to raise that capital and undertake exploration accordingly. So I thought that a lot of those things are steps in the right direction, and the auction regime and some of the other reforms that they are talking about also are very welcome and have their applicability. And if they apply the best practices to the different streams of whether it's deep-seated or surface-seated mineral, I think India, the mining sector in India would fare very well going forward into the future. One last point is something that you also raised, is the question of what happens with the explorers and the prospects that have been prospective in the past. A lot of money has been spent, a lot of energy, time, effort has been spent. Now, those rights have got to be respected. And as the minister pointed out, that they are looking at the pros and cons. Nothing has been finalized, and they will take an appropriate decision. And I hope the decision is that respect those prospects and respect those companies and explorers that have spent large quantities of capital and time in the past in developing those projects. And as far as the future is concerned, by all means, introduce mining reforms that are progressive, that would bode well for the mining sector in India. So that's basically what my take is from what the minister said.
Yeah, thanks, Sandeep, for that. So, Dr. Aruna, your thoughts on exploration specifically. I know, Minister was talking about continuing with the PL cum ML kind of a regime. Any thoughts you have on how should we enhance the spends in exploration? Some of the numbers I was quoting earlier as well. India, of course, is exploring has explored less than 10% of its reserve. And any country which wants to become a mining or mineral sector leader needs to do way better. So do you see a two-track approach, one track for the private sector with exit clauses, with access to capital, and that track going on, and PL plus ML track, another track for the geological survey or the other government agencies to do? How do you see the exploration problem to get this?
You have said it absolutely right. Like against 5.7 lakh hectares, which are minerals, and we have nearly 95 types of minerals in India, in which 10 are metals, nearly 23 non-metals, and other scattered metals, including the precious and fuel. Now, in this scenario, the exploration, if it is just 10%, and we are thinking mining to be the major contributor to the GDP, then definitely everything has to be done to accelerate it. There is no two opinions about it. And just by doing through Indian Geological Survey of India has not proven to catch up that speed. So therefore, we need the private people to come. And therefore, this exit policy, what the minister mentioned, will attract them. What is needed is a more clarity on the issue when we are talking about. So it's not two streams. Indian Geological Survey will continue to do their job. But there are areas, there are some minerals in which the private sector can be completely opened up with a right for them to continue and sail into the mining. otherwise have an exit clause, and how that calculation will be done for them to pay for their expenses. There need to be a much more clarity on that issue, because that is going to make the whole difference. And then if we are thinking auction as the only way to allocate the mine, then there has to be a clarity that somebody who invests in exploration, if they are going to continue and they want to do it, they cannot definitely be asked to participate in auction with ifs and buts, because the exit clause has to be at their choice. If they want to translate the survey with the mining, that is the choice of the explorer. If they want to do only the survey and exit at a cost, then it is also their choice. So both the options in the policy are very important to be open. In auction, one very good thing the minister mentioned, which has been a pain point, one is to decide the minimum quantity that everybody has to sort of dig and bring it in the market. So, which is very good. And second, what he said, opening all the mines for auction at the same time. Today, in the quest of revenue maximization, all state governments bring in very little number of mines, so that there are more and more bidding, very high bidding, people not sure whether the second lot is going to come or not come. So this kind of a problem is coming.
To create artificial scarcity in the system.
Absolutely. So both the artificial scarcity will also add on. And why I mentioned it to this point of exploration, because you need a holistic approach to the whole thing. So starting from survey, how to mine, mining restrictions, not restrictions, what kind of a royalty they are going to pay. With this picture very clear, we can attract a lot of FDI mining. India can become a bright spot because 90% is still a mystery. It is unexplored. And by the way our geology is, the possibilities are immense when we are going ahead.
Absolutely, absolutely. So Sandeep, coming back to you, maybe I'll pick on you. While we have tried to open up the sector, but the foreign participation in the sector has been still, far from satisfying. So while of course Indian private sector players are participating fairly aggressively, if the recent round of commercial coal block auctions anything to go by, but the foreign biggies like BHPs, Rio, Vale, I mean they're still shying away from India. Of course, there are a host of issues, but coming from wearing a private sector hat, is there something that the government can do? Because of course, these biggies coming into India will definitely give us the scale benefit that we are so desperately wanting. So, what would tip the scale for these global biggies, mining biggies from private sector?
Sure, Rajesh. One of the reasons, the history of work in India and the experiences in India in the past, whether we talk about BHP, whether we talk about Rio Tinto, whether we talk about De Beers, and whether we talk of a whole range of other Australian or Canadian explorers that have come to India in the past over the last 10, 15 years, set up operations and quite elaborate operations, and decided that the regulatory framework under which they were operating was not conducive to their operations. And what is the regulatory framework that they were chasing? They want, one, policy stability. And looking at the history, there have been multiple policy changes that go to the very core of the issue, which impacts on investment. There needs to be security of tenure. And again, going back to what we were talking about, exploration, that if you are going to invest money into this high-risk exploration business, then you want to ensure that at the end of it, if you want an exit, Dr. Rana said that is a choice that you are given. But if you want to take it to the exploitation stage, that you get that opportunity as well. So I think from the perspective of getting them back interested into the country, there are two things, in my view, that need to be respected. One is that the past security of tenures that have been earned by the different companies have got to be honored, and all future applications for prospecting mining licenses, obviously, this is what the government also is kind of ensuring, will be comprehensive thing that they can follow. There would be clarity in terms of if they do make the investment, this is how it can be developed, and this is how they can exploit it or exit. Should and that decision should be entirely made by them. But two key issues: policy stability, security of tenure, and an investor-friendly environment, and they will come back. Geologically, India is, has all the potential, particularly for industries such as gold exploration. One reason why Deccan is operating in India is exactly that. And it would be the same with multiple other minerals and metals.
Sure. So Aruna, flipping the same question to you, but I would like you to wear more of a bureaucrat hat, the ex-bureaucrat hat. I mean, land has been a biggest pain point, right? When you look at mining, land acquisition. Should the state play a much larger role in helping the mining companies in land acquisition? Because if you expect a Vale or a Rio Tinto or a BHP to come to India and start acquiring land in the complicated regime that we have, they will obviously be shying away from it. So should the state play a much larger role in land acquisition? Your thoughts on that?
Definitely. My personal thoughts are very, very clear, and I've been writing about it both when I was in chair and when I'm out of chair about it. That when we put a mine for auction, or we like to call it, because what is needed is that it should be ready to take. Plug in, plug out kind of a level we have to take it in. So it is the land identification, acquisition of the land, then clearances of forest environment. It has to be absolutely in all aspects. Similarly, when survey is being done, if you ask them during survey just to put, one maybe a 3 by 3 meter kind of arrangement to bore and do it, and you need 20 permissions for it, then it becomes a non-starter because it becomes very, very difficult. And the way India is that maximum mines are covered, have big forests, right? So therefore, you need that space. You need that space to drill, to dig, to survey, to do everything. So all that clearance has to be at one stroke and has to be permitted, so that once you get that license to go and explore, then it inbuilds into it that you are into it. You can attach a local forest officer with that person, so that with minimal damage, you just go ahead and do it and complete the task. Because it is not for the heck of timber or for destroying the forest they are doing it. What they are doing is to explore, which is going to add to the GDP of the country. And that is the approach we will have to take when we are moving in.
Absolutely. So moving on to next set of point, I think one very interesting thing that the minister said, I picked it up. He was talking about PLI for mining as well. The production linked incentive. Do you think that could be a way to go along with some kind of an auction? Because as I said, the country, and as minister also laid out upfront, the country is trying to maximize the mining production, iron ore, coal, limestone, rare earths, you name it. So would PLI be a way to go? Do you think that could be a game changer? Start with Aruna and then I'll come to Sandeep.
I'm not very sure about the impact it is going to have on mining, because mining works more by the market forces. So how much there is a domestic market for it, how much there is an export market for it. So if you are giving an incentive to produce more and more, it is more of a realization they are going to get in the market, which is the major driving force to them. And that realization has to come out very, very clearly. Like today, if you see, there is a complete deficit in particular metals, which are in great demand today because of the accelerated growth in the sector. It is happening so much because of the change of the lease, the time taken for the new operational person to start off the mining. There has been a stalemate en route when some of the mining was cancelled. Then common cause judgment was there, where a lot of minerals lying was not allowed to be taken out. So all this put together has landed up in today's deficit. So that deficit needs to be sort of cleared and caught on in the market. So for that, there can be an incentive can work to a little way, but major thing is the realization in the market, which is the biggest driving force for any of the minerals. And IRR is very good in the mining. It is not a problem. The return on investment is also equally good in the mining. But the gestation period is long. The investment, the initial investment. Therefore, what they are looking forward is what I'll say, a credible and consistent policy. No somersaults. I think that will become a much more bigger driving force than the impact of the production linked incentives, if we are able to give. Maybe it is if it is introduced, maybe a couple of years down the line, we will be in a better position to comment whether it had an impact or it didn't have an impact.
Right. Maybe coming to the last question, in the interest of time, Sandeep, I'll pick you on this one. So PSUs obviously control the lion's share of the market right now in terms of overall mineral production, be it SAIL, NTPC, CIL, and many others, state MDCs and so on and so forth, MOIL, and NALCO and so on and so forth. So, one thing that the minister said I really liked, they talking about 2.5 lakh crore investments into PSUs by 2030, which should drive production. So, any thoughts on the role of the PSUs in expanding the production? CIL has been talking about the billion-ton production target, and they're now talking about achieving it by 2023. So, any views on what all should the PSUs be doing in terms of ramping up their production to meet the Atmanirbhar Bharat targets? Sandeep, you're on mute. If you can just check. Sandeep, you're on mute.
No, yeah. Somehow it got into the mute. Yeah, Rajesh, I think this is a question that's more appropriate for Dr. Aruna to answer rather than me, because my focus has really been on the private sector investments and development of the private sector into mining. But in terms of PSUs, they certainly have a role to play, and incentivizing PSUs to produce more and contribute more to the growth of the economy, I think would be very welcome. One thing, though, that we haven't touched upon, which I would like to particularly add, is taxation incentives, whether it's a PSU or the private sector. That is something that the government can introduce and should introduce. And, the parameters for that taxation incentive could be multiple. It could be the quantum of money that you invest into exploration. It could be based on the production incentives as well. So, a combination of factors that ultimately enhance economic mining output, I think would be very useful.
Sure. So, Dr. Aruna, if I can come to you about the role of PSUs and how they should be.
If you would have read the newspaper today, the day in which the Minister Steel, Minister Coal and Mines, as well as Research Minister had, one thing they did talk about that the PSU must step in when there is a shortage of iron ore in the market, especially for the MSMEs. And you must have seen that many of the steel makers have opened a window for the MSMEs to sell. The reason behind it is that the end users have gone for auctioning to secure their metal. They are not the major. The major business is the end using product. So whether it's aluminium, whether it is steel or whatever it is. So in the process, they will be creating a lot of fines, they will be creating a lot of lumps. And if that they can make it available to MSME, they will be entering the market. And in auction, that is a danger. But it goes high by the end users whose main business is not mining. So that then what you talked before, PLI is not good. PSU can step in, and I am a strong believer. A strong PSU makes the private sector also behave well. So in the sense, then it comes down to very healthy competition. The PSU investment can go a long way, but PSU coming by auction route, I don't know to what extent they will be in a position to go.
Yeah.
Like you had an allocation route to PSUs, whether it is Orissa Development, Orissa Minerals, or whether it is NMDC, or others, or of course the SAIL and Tata got it as more as an end user than miners. So this kind of a thing is something, the auction route, how much they will be able to withstand the competition in future will have to be seen, that how long they will be in that business.
Absolutely. So maybe moving on then, I think we have a couple of more minutes to maybe push in a couple of more questions. So Sandeep, you did talk about rare earths, going forward, if you look at it, electrical vehicles, storage, the mobile technology, the new economy is all about some of these rare earths. And we do have, I won't say we are the leaders there, but we do have our own reserves. But again, the same story about the larger minerals also applies to rare earths. We are not able to exploit them well enough. But any thoughts on the rare earths in terms of what how we should be doing? Though the minister alluded to sort of looking at some similar approaches that they're taking for coal and iron ore, but any thoughts on rare earths?
I think rare earths should be treated similar to precious metals in terms of policy differentiation between the bulk and the non-bulk minerals, and I think that purpose would be better served. The time taken for exploration, the investment cost, the risk capital, all of those, the low success rate, all of those things would apply to precious metals as they would to rare earths. So I do believe very strongly that there should be a policy distinction between separating the non-bulk type minerals and the bulk. Yeah.
Dr. Aruna, your thoughts on rare earths, ma'am? How do we actually exploit?
See, rare earths, there of great strategic importance, and that is where generally it is the PSU which is encouraged to explore them within the country, or maybe buy the mines outside the country. The need is there. You secure that will need for these strategic reasons. So that is one part of the story. And definitely we need entirely two different policies, because as the name itself suggests, the rare earths are very less in quantity. So it requires a very different technology, more intensive, more investment to take it out. So you need much more long rope, more concessions, and maybe tax thing, what very rightly Sandeep has said, tax incentives and everything to encourage them. See, actually, when you are talking about the mining, you have to have a holistic thing. You should not think how much you are going to have a revenue by auction and how much by royalty. You have to see the holistic way, that because every step it is contributing. The end product is going to contribute. So if you give a tax concession, the more and more, if we are able to exploit the mineral, we are able to use it domestically, we are able to compete domestically, create infrastructure, we are able to export it as a finished product, then all that is going to go a very long way when we are working towards it. And that is what needed. What I'll say, see, we talk about, in the policy about the various things. We don't about the finance distribution or the money distribution on it. That is very important to look into it. The whole cycle of mining, the money distribution has to trigger more and more growth. Ultimately, the government exchequer will try to sort of gain at every step, then it is becoming a disincentive. So it is very important that to look at it from the finance cycle point of view also.
Absolutely. In fact, that should then bring me to the last question on this one. So I think the mindset needs to change from looking at mining in terms of direct cash generation or direct penalizing it because through cess and royalties, etc., versus looking at mining as having multiplier effect in the economy and then getting the indirect benefits. So I think maybe the focus should be more towards the multiplier effects and the indirect benefits, whereas if you directly attack mining in terms of revenue share or royalty, etc., then maybe you're penalizing the industry way too much, and maybe the scale that the industry needs to attain is getting curtailed at some stage. Sandeep, your thoughts on this one, direct versus indirect
Absolutely agree, Rajesh. It has to have that multiplier effect, and it is the indirect benefits that need to be looked at rather than immediate revenue generation or maximization of revenue, which is perhaps why the auction regime, to a certain extent, was actually introduced. So, and that multiplier effect is actually quite deep. And it's a tried and tested policy across the world, and the philosophy should be that adopt the best practices that the world has adopted to become the sort of production, or to achieve the kind of production that they have achieved. And India can do the same, because we have earlier discussed that geologically the potential is very, very strong. It's just the policy mechanism that has not been right for the development and in the interest of investment into the country. And as long as these two things are changed and these reforms are to a large extent being looked at from that perspective, but there are still a percentage, there is still a percentage that needs to be readdressed so that you get a complete package to benefit the existing companies plus the future investments coming into the country.
Got it. Dr. Aruna, your closing thoughts on this one, direct versus indirect benefits from the sector? Yeah.
Yes, I couldn't agree more with you and Sandeep, what you have said it very rightly. And this has been the hindrance. The contribution of minerals in GDP is only 2.5, whereas across the globe it ranges between 7 to 10%. Now you just look at the possible jump that is there. So the whole mechanism of the policy making should be targeted to trigger it. And like I always say, what you need is a holistic approach. You have to see from step 1 to step 10, survey to market, like you say, food from field to fork kind of a thing. So here you will have to literally work on that and plug in every irritant that is coming into it. And this is one sector which can quickly bring that jump. Like you do a correct policy today, you see an advantage tomorrow kind of. So in the sense there, I totally agree that the focus has to be of jumping from 2 to 10. If that is the focus in a given timelines, then all that thing need to be done. And the government exchequer will increase, the employment will increase, the use of the end products will increase, the export margins will increase. And India, what people are looking at it is a bright spot or a sleeping giant as far as the mining is concerned. I think we can shake it up. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you very much for those thoughts. I think in conclusion, I can only say that some of the things that Minister said were really heartening. The 5 pillars he spoke about, including infrastructure, technology, the demography and the demand that India as a local market itself provides a lot of steps in the right direction. And I think we'll also learn as we go. Obviously, India's challenges are a little unique, while there are a lot of examples to learn from the global markets, but we do have our own unique challenges. But I'm sure I think the government is taking steps in the right direction. Thank you very much, Dr. Aruna, Sandeep. Thank you very much for this panel discussion. Thank you very much, Swaraj Magazine, for organizing this and Vedanta for sort of supporting this. So with that, we are closing it off. I know we are slightly ahead of time, but I guess we started late, so we should be pardoned for running slightly over time. So thank you very much, everyone. With that, I think we can close this session.
Thank you.
Thank you.